brush your hair in the mirror again. Wake up in the sunlight, drive a corner store, it begins. Get up a beer and grab a cigarette and pop a cap in the morning light. It's morning time. Get up and relive your life just like you did on yesterday, just like yesterday. Live up your life in the morning sun, soaking up the morning breeze, smelling all the morning air, soaking up the morning air. Smell the morning breeze, soak up the rays and soak up the sunlight. Sit down, dip down, take a little trip now. Hold on to your ass while we flip now. Life's about to get a little crazy, yeah. Come on lady, let's make a baby, making a scene, live an American dream. Life's about to get a little crazy. Hold on to my hand while we drift to the stars, and hold on to my hand while I play this guitar, 'cause I want you and me to be a little thing forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, yeah. Sit down and dip down, take a little trip now. Hold on to your ass while we flip now. Life's about to get a little crazy. We gon' turn it up, y'all. Come on, lady, let's make a baby, making a scene, living the American dream. Life's about to get a little crazy. Sit with me, smoke some weed, and breathe the sunny air. The world ain't ready, y'all. The world ain't ready, y'all.
Today marks one of the best days, I think I have ever had. Today I really connected on a level I've been searching for so long. Searching for, never thought I would find. Never thought I would find. Never thought I would find. Come on, honey, reach out for my hand as I take you for a ride. I'll pass up all the stars in the sky as we glide, oh glide, oh glide. So just get back, relax with me, baby, 'cause everything will be alright. Turn to mainland when you're ready, but only when you're ready. We can stay here forever, you know. Take you for a ride. Ooh, I'll take you downtown to see the city lights. Ooh, baby, you know you're the apple of my eye. Ooh, baby, I wanna make you feel so right. There comes a day when we will be together. I can only hope that day brings pretty weather. Ooh, yeah. Oh,
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Hoary Sheet Show on this wonderful Monday, February 14th, 2022 episode. Hello, everybody in chat. Jess is in there. K Ultra's in there. What's up, guys? Yes, that's just a bit of my old music. I keep getting copyright strikes for playing other music, so I've had enough of that, and I'm just playing whatever's in my personal music folder and just threw a little line up for you guys. All of those were just love songs from the past, and that's kind of all that comes out of me. So in this stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play several videos from the Sat Yoga Institute, the same YouTube channel that I played videos from the last time I did a stream. That went pretty well. And the first one I have on the list is, coincidentally, How to Heal a Broken Heart. And then we're going to go into The Algorithm Has No Rhyme or Reason. And or maybe I'll switch that one up with The Heart Is Ripped Apart by Divergent Drives. I haven't watched that one yet at all. So I actually just watched parts of each one of these and have yet to finish them. So this is like my opportunity to finish them, as well as kind of share with you guys what they're all about, and I'll give my commentary and give my sort of correlations, because basically this is a guy that I believe is quite a spiritual creature. He's definitely on the same path that I am for this world, and sharing his wisdom. And I find a lot of correlations in what he says, because I've been through some of these experiences. It just sounds like somebody else is telling my story, and I don't ever hear this story being told. So I find that he he has much more of a background in all the spiritual teachings and things that must be, documented by yogis and ascended masters and whatnot. And for me, that's what means a lot to me, is to hear somebody else saying things that I have been through and never really fully understood, but I'm on this certain path, kind of in the dark, figuring my way out through it. And when I hear this guy talk about these things, it's very matter of fact the way he speaks about it. And it's just like telling my story all over again in a whole different way, with different labels and different sources he's gathered it from. And I find that really fascinating that, first of all, I don't read anything. Reading puts me to sleep. It's like I have a wonderful high level reading ability and stuff like that. I act on camera, I read scripts for a living. I read very well, but reading in general puts me to sleep. So it's not the best way for me to absorb anything. And so a lot of my experiences have come from my own sort of channeling, or just different things I've done and experiences I've had, and I'm trying to put all this together and figure out why me. And anyway, we're gonna take a listen to this guy, and I'm gonna pipe in here and there, and I might load a game in the background. I have some resources I need to harvest for my space game, so I can continue to build on my massive complex, for no real reason other than I just love that game, No Man's Sky, and how I can build anything I want. And it's a pretty cool little game to passively collect resources and build while I listen to something on YouTube. So you might see me load up that and play that, and I'll try to get the volume right so you guys aren't bombarded with all the noise from the game. But we'll see how it goes. This is going to be probably a pretty long stream. I'm not setting a time limit on this, so feel free to hop in, hop out, do your day. I appreciate you guys who hang around the chat and go on the spiritual journey with me. It's really important for me to know that the stuff that I'm learning is at least going to one other person in this life. I'm trying to change this world ever so slowly and ever so quickly at the same time. And this is just one of the ways I've found in my life that to bring myself joy. And I appreciate the journey, and appreciate you guys going on this journey with me. What's up, George? How's it going? You know my real name. Who are you? Who are you calling me Devin? Interesting. I don't know who that is. Anyway, let's get started. Let me pull up the scene, play the thingamabobamajiggy. Here we go. This one is titled How to Heal a Broken Heart by Shunyamurti. Spiritual Wisdom Teaching is the title of this video from, again, the Sat Yoga Institute. Sat Yoga Institute channel. Right there. That's where you can find this video. How to Heal a Broken Heart. Let's go. Put on my headphones so we don't have an echo here. I also have to fry up some shrimp. I'm not even sure if it's okay to thaw out shrimp and get too tired to cook it, and so throw it back in the fridge. I don't know. I might give myself salmonella or something right here on a live stream for you guys. But whatever, something's gonna kill me one day, right? I'll be listening, getting ready for work. Can't wait. Cool, Jess. All right, here we go.
The sign of an old soul is having a broken heart. Every old soul who's had more than a few past lives at the end of Kali Yuga is born with a broken heart. And karma makes sure that the heart gets broken several more times in childhood.
Oh shit.
So that it's thoroughly crushed by the time it reaches adulthood.
Telling my
The
story,
young
bro.
souls are just born heartless, and so they do not have to struggle in the
Interesting.
same way. But they also cannot reach the same depth of feeling, because it is anguish that is the engine of ascension. And so you will know how old you are as a soul by how much anguish you feel.
I'm Father Time, baby.
And every old soul who is brought to Sat Yoga knows that they come here not because their ego brought them, but something greater than the ego. Which cannot be considered a part of oneself. It is that which is not the ego self. It is that which the ego cannot understand and can only think of it so long as the ego paradigm remains as something mysterious, magical, inconceivable. The broken-hearted soul comes to a place like an ashram and hopes to heal that broken heart, but gradually discovers that it cannot be healed. The soul is terminally wounded.
Goosebumps. Goosebumps hard.
And it cannot hope to attain relationships of love that will heal its wounds. Its agony of feeling the lack of ever being loved, adored, recognized.
Speaking my story, bro.
Never having known real union or even compassionate containment. And it has to come very gradually to the deflationary recognition that it will never achieve its goals of wanting to be loved by another ego or by itself. And it will also come to realize, sometimes with great agony, sometimes sadness, sometimes simply a kind of blankness, that the ego cannot even love God, cannot even believe in God.
Got over that hump. Took a while.
And that the ego as an instrument of thought is flawed, is inherently unable to get out of its egocentric orbit, its narcissism, its demand circuit. And it cannot think clearly about the real. And because of its broken heart that must remain as repressed as possible, cannot feel authentically. And
The
so
numbness.
feeling is replaced by affect. And the agony of the ego's loneliness is usually covered over with anger, negative projections, superiority complex alternating with inferiority. Anything but feel the truth of what is actually occurring within and without. And the ego mind does not want to come to the recognition that it is still tied to the lost object of childhood. It still wants what it knows is impossible to get. And because it won't give up on this, it won't accept the present. It won't accept what is offered. That's not satisfying enough. God is not satisfying to the ego.
Response.
And because the ego's perspective, its frame of reference, is inherently that of an entity separate from God in a material world that has no meaning, it can never attain a sense of its own meaningfulness, its own goodness, its own purpose. And so its efforts to prove itself in some kind of a manic or hypomanic effort to achieve something worthy will always collapse into depression and despair at the futility of any effort bringing about what it really wanted from that effort, which was that unconditional adoration of the other that is not to be found.
Deep.
And so existence itself becomes a dreadful burden to the ego. Just to get up in the morning, just to be conscious, just to be aware of its lack and of its sense of not belonging in the world, and of its inability to shed its ambivalence about everything, its inability ever to make a full commitment, because fragments of the mind are simply not able to rise out of the infantile desire not even to live, to return to a womb, to find an easy way out, to choose the lower death drive, to believe in the fantasies that things would be different if only somewhere else called one, if one could live in a different place with different people, or had more money, or a different job, or a different this or that. And the ego will go on ruminating and fantasizing rather than being present, because it cannot stand its presence.
One, two.
It cannot be comfortable in its own skin. And so it is in constant running away from itself mode, either running in a rajasic sense or a tamasic, dying into inertia, spacing out, creating symptoms that keep it from being conscious because they overwhelm the mind.
Distractions, video games, drugs, alcohol, sleep.
And so it cannot deal realistically with its situation, because there are too many infantile fragments that get in the way of realistic thought. And it doesn't even know what a realistic thought would be. It can't recognize it, because it has never been in the real.
You know, layers of an onion. In terms of awakening.
And so the time spent in meditation for a yogi in this condition is a kind of purgatory. in which it cannot physically run away.
Torture.
And
Spiritual
it
torture.
must sit and stew in its own brew of horror, of self-hatred, of sense of guilt and shame and failure and hatred and fury.
Damn. Tell them my story, dudes.
And at the same time, its conscious witnessing of its own futility grows. And a sense of the emptiness of its life gradually bring it around to a recognition that there is some force maintaining one's consciousness and one's life that is not part of the ego. And although one cannot in that state recognize the presence of God, one recognizes the need to suicide the ego.
I can't put it any better myself. My whole goal in this life right now is to prepare my body to let go of material sustenance, food, killing the ego through changing my vibrations to rise above the layer of the ego, that part of the onion of our soul. That is exactly what I'm trying to do. Live an ego-less life. Have a perma-ego death. That's what he's talking about.
One recognizes at some moment that one cannot live another moment inside the ego's monstrous mind. And without any guarantee or sense that there is a God that will contain and save one from depersonalization into some psychotic meltdown.
It's a scary thought to think that to have an experience where you lose the desire to have an identity, to not care about what you're even called as far as a name. Like, that might scare the crap out of some people. But I've experienced this several times, and it's, at this point in my journey, blissful and those moments temporary. And that is the purgatory he's talking about. That's why I made a post not long ago on my Facebook page. I posted, it's spiritual torture to know perfection and watch yourself choose less than perfect in a mad world. Because it's hard to do. You end up getting a taste of divinity like I have. And when you end up getting a taste of divinity like I have, and then go back to normal, you realize the hole that you're in, the quicksand, the pit of quicksand depression, purgatory, torture. It's really torture. That's why I'm trying to kill that part of the ego that desires to be loved by another, to want anything to do with this world. Like, that's why I'm on this journey. This dude is like speaking my story.
A process of self-annihilation of the ego begins to get underway. And one begins to face what life would be if one were empty of the ego's thought patterns. And it is here that that quantum level of consciousness begins to make itself felt and known as the patterns of thought begin to be decollapsed. The signature thoughts of the ego, whether of fury or of shame or of some kind of withering away inside out of the sense of the lovelessness of the world and oneself. Or the having failed oneself in one's efforts to attain some kind of nobility or worthiness or transcendence. However one has articulated it to oneself, it is the final and irrevocable recognition that the ego cannot take one any further on one's life journey. And that to kill oneself physically would be only to forcibly have to come back and face it all again with an even worse situation. Because one at least knows that consciousness does not die.
Yep, this guy knows that.
And the ego's sanskaras, if they have not been completely melted away, will bring one to a life in which those same situations recur, but with more sense of defeat and of negativity in one's space.
I wonder how far along I am in this life. Because from the way he's talking about it, I get it. Like, that's the reason why I haven't killed myself. He just said it. You're just going to come back with a worse hand dealt. It's just going to be harder. And, you know, I'm somebody that struggles with the thought of suicide weekly, bare minimum every week, several times a week, if that, several times a week, often. And that's the reason why I'm still here, is because some part of me believes that it's not an answer. You kill yourself, you're just going to come back to this world, to this place, just like it is, all over again. So it's pointless to have woken up this far. If you're in my channel right now, all 7 of you now are sitting here. Hey, Nora, how's it going? All 7 of you, yeah, he's talking some real shit. I got hours of real shit loaded up for you guys. And I mean, every video is like a revelation for me, especially in this part of my life. And I know that when we die, we are a spirit. And we, I guess I don't know when we die we're a spirit, but I've gone out of my body enough to know I can walk through frickin' walls and watch any of you take a shower if I really want to. So to me, that's what happens when we die. We'll become this astral form or soul, our vessel of consciousness without a body, without a meat shield. And I'm assuming that, we can hang around and do whatever and float around in that state. But it's here in a body with emotions and everything of this world that we truly learn things and we truly gain wisdom. We gain the wisdom to evolve faster in this body than we would shooting ourselves in the head and trying to do it without being in the world fully. So we have to dive in this world to evolve, basically. So that's why I'm still here.
And the process of self-annihilation does not begin with any kind of celebratory, transcendental victory, but rather with the simple understanding, the final realization that one has been in a state of misunderstanding one's whole life, of who and what one is, and what reality is about, and what can be expected. And the reconciliation comes only after the recognition that the world will never bring satisfaction to the ego, and only its annihilation can bring peace. And as one consciously sits and annihilates the mind and its thinking process, and enters into that silence from which there is no return, what had been felt as an emptiness that surrounded and encompassed one, as the ego weakens and its own pulse begins to generate thoughts at more and more of a kind of silent gap that enters into the space of the mind between each thought. What had been perceived as emptiness gradually begins to be felt as a kind of fullness, a kind of supporting ether that surrounds and saturates the mind. And as the ego's thought patterns and defense mechanisms finally fall away, that ether pervades, and that ether turns out to be love.
I've experienced that right there. The voice of God told me just that and showed me just that, allowed me to taste just that. That was the night I did that self-exorcism, and it told me I was tripping balls, and I was getting nauseous, and it told me, I was like, what is this nausea? I was just asking myself, what is this nausea? What the hell? And I cried out in my own brain, and I got an answer, and the answer was, it's a demon. I was like, wait a second, who the fuck is, whoa, all right, well, what do I do about it? And I was told what to do about it. And whatever told me what to do about it fixed me, fixed all my depression, all my anger, all my everything, the desire for love. Like, I got back in that room and I said to that voice, I said, look, there's like one more thing I can feel that's wrong with me, and it's my desire to be loved by another. How do I fix that? And it told me. It asked me questions. How do you want to feel? And I thought about how I want to feel. And it said, take that, lay down in your own lap, cuddle yourself, and feel that in this moment. And so I did, and I felt whole. I felt more whole than when a past lover of mine was spooning with me in the bed watching sitcoms or something like that. I was all alone, and yet I felt the most whole and complete ever from listening to that. So what he's saying is, when you destroy that ego and you destroy those desires to be loved by another, you will be caught by the love of God. Fact.
A kind of love that the ego could never recognize. And it turns out to be the only kind of love that can heal the heart.
Goosebumps.
And dying into that love is what brings bliss. Dying into the fullness of what had seemed to be non-existent emptiness turns out to be the very presence of the God that one could not recognize or believe in. And as the ambivalence of the ego's mind falls into silence, the presence of God fills the heart with its own force of will that has nothing to do with an individual attainment, but is simply the power of the real that takes over a heart that had died into its own nature, and finally comes to realize that it had never known itself, and that it had shut out its own being. It had shut out its own truth, It had shut out the very power of love because it thought that was the only way to survive. And once that value of survival of the ego's bastion of individual entityhood is finally surrendered, then the power of that eternal life that is not individual, but universal, cosmic, eternal, ineffable, brings the power of divine presence in which will and love and intelligence are finally united at a level in which the body functions now as the direct servant of God.
So back when I was having my Jesus episode, that's it. Like I felt no desire for anything I've ever desired all of my life. There was no more desire to have a fast computer or this new video game or money or friends or a partner, relationship, love on that level. No desire for any of that. My only desire was to heal whoever was close enough to have a conversation with me. And that was a bit too much for the people close enough to me. And that's true. Like you have that ego death, you lose that desire to be individual or special or famous or powerful or rich. You lose all of that. It's not like a sad loss. It's like a, whew, I don't even need none of that to feel this good, this blissful, this whole, this loved by a whole different source. It's amazing to feel like that. And I want to go back there. I don't care what it takes to get me back there. I don't care if I have to live under a bridge. I don't care what the hell it takes, but I'm going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and struggle much longer. And now my plan for this is to drop another hit come April, and I will have most likely fasted for several days, complete fast in preparation for that. And I may become a completely different person. I have no idea what I'm going to do after that point. If I find myself in that state of consciousness, I know that it's at that moment that I can no longer do anything that I don't want to do anymore. I have no idea how I'm going to sustain my living situation and my bills and all that. The desire to pay those things or have anything that those things provide me will be gone and lost. And I will be so happy with them being gone and lost. I have no idea what's going to come of me come April, but I already know being in that state of consciousness is all I need. Because I've tasted it before a few times.
And all of the ambivalence and all of the anger and all of the heartbreak is gone along with the ego itself.
Damn right it is.
And the victory comes without anyone left to feel victorious.
And two says you're already there. Interesting statement. I am already there in a sense, but there's still parts of me attempting to make this egoic part of me survive. And I've come to the conclusion that this is other entities within myself that's found cracks in my aura to get back into my temple and found a way to survive within me, and ever so softly it's planting subconscious thoughts and desires within me to sustain its self within myself. And that's why I believe the exorcism part of my journey is very important, Nobody could have ever told me that I needed an exorcism to fix all my problems. Dudes, let me tell you, that was not a part of my life a year and a half ago. That was not a part of my belief system. Demons and possession, it was not a part of my life until personal experiences. And I could be wrong. Maybe I don't have demons in me, but a lot of stuff leads to the fact that there's something in me that's keeping me still here, and it's futile. And I think by starving myself of sustenance, it's going to force itself out of the cracks that it's found its way in. I'm banking on that. Something tells me when I had that Jesus experience that I may have killed some part of me. If not, I may have killed my physical body. And the only thing animating me was pure spirit. Somebody has to explain to me what was driving my body before I re-entered it. When I was laying on a hospital bed after my family had freaked out about me drawing perfect pictures of Jesus's face with a pencil when I can't draw a fucking stick man to save my life. Like, that woke my aunt up. She still tells me about how amazing that picture was, and it's gone. It's lost. It dissolved. Nobody can find it. She said I had written notes on it. Like, I was writing like diagrams on Jesus's face and like pouring out stuff in my drawings. And she was fascinated by it. She was the only person in my family that was like, leave him alone. Leave him alone. Don't let him be. Let him be, And everybody else was freaking out because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, and I was just talking probably a lot like this guy. And they, my family isn't very spiritual at all. Like, to say I'm totally the black sheep in my family. And for a very long time, I was looked at as a black sheep, but now it's sort of changed. They see that I'm not crazy. And something, when I got stuck with that, whatever they stuck me with on that hospital bed, it knocked me out. And I came back to consciousness and awareness, kind of like in a third person perspective, zooming towards my body, going down a hallway. And I got back into my body, and it felt like something else was in there walking. Something else was in there controlling it. I had to fight it over like a boa constrictor had wrapped itself around my entire body, and I was unwrapping this snake. And it had my tongue curling in my mouth. It had all of my muscles contorted and twisted and cramped. I felt completely dehydrated and weak. What the fuck was that, dudes? What was in me able to make me walk down the hallway for an unknown amount of time before I came back and said, hell no, give me my body back? I don't know. But I think there's something to repairing one's aura by repairing one's physical health, by stopping eating all these poisons that are everywhere. I can switch a knob on my kitchen sink right now and know that I'm being poisoned with chlorine and fluoride and any number of trace minerals and chemicals that are found in our city's water supply. Who knows what that's really, really doing? You ever seen that part of the Matrix where the Merovingian is sitting at the dining table with Neo and Trinity? It's the Merovingian and his hot girlfriend and Neo and Trinity, and they're all sitting at this table, and he ends up saying something about, how he orders a cake for this hot chick in a table next to him, and he's telling everybody, hey, watch this chick. Watch when she eats this cake. Watch what this cake's going to do. And this cake, like, makes her have, like, a full body orgasm right there, and she has to excuse herself and go to the restroom. That's a mock of what they're doing to us with food. They know that they're putting something in our food, in our water, in our air particulates, the chemtrail things, that is spiritually weakening our link to the divine. empowering and feeding and nourishing our egos one way or another. It's in the very food and air that we breathe. I believe this. This is my belief. And it makes a lot of sense.
To celebrate. But the victory comes. And the victory is always God's.
Yes, the vibrations, the Wi-Fi, all the unseen forces. All of this is keeping us, is changing our vibrations. This is exactly right. You're on point, Intu.
Because we are God's.
Back that up.
But the victory comes. And the victory is always God's. Because we are God's.
It's waiting for us to come back to our divine nature.
And in that final surrender of the hubris of the ego and its demand to be right about everything, we finally realize that the ego was the wrongness, was itself the sin, was itself the missing of the mark of its own being, was itself its own fall into a hell realm that it needed to discover in order to realize the value, the beauty, the goodness, the eternal love of God who saves us all
Unconditionally.
when we are finally willing to fall into those arms of unconditional love that are there for us when the ego can go no further and has reached its end. The world is now at ego's end. And those who have gone through that ending into a new beginning that is egoless can provide the energy field in which trust and safety can be felt, so that one can have the courage to go through that same death, that same dying unto God, that alone will bring salvation and the cessation of all suffering.
Ufmatic said, I've been thinking of drinking distilled water and eating organic raw meat once in a while. Can't even trust vegetables, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, etc., all man-made, not found in nature. I didn't know that kale and broccoli and cauliflower were not found in nature. Those all GMO, man-made products? See, this knowledge is lost. If that's true, this knowledge is lost on us in the mainstream, and we just eat their garbage, Since I don't have all the answers consciously in this present form of my consciousness, I am putting something to the test that I feel brought me initially to my first awakening altogether. Now that I've retraced my steps, I've been asking myself for over a year and a half now, how did I end up all of a sudden clicking into that Jesus mode? What did it? And I know that fasting was a big part of it. I don't remember eating food that whole week prior. I was doing way too many triple C's, and they don't make you hungry at all. Food tastes terrible. And I know at that time, I knew that food would just be something I would throw up anyway, and it would ruin the high that I was going for anyway. So I just didn't eat. And something, maybe I starved out whatever demons I had in me. Maybe they were like, damn, this dude's not giving me any nutrition now. I'm getting the hell out of here. And when they vacated, poof, I woke up and became my divine self for that period of time. And so that's why personally, I think to to make it to this state, you have to purify your body. And if that means stop eating all foods, to let your body clear out its entire system, detox and everything, and then maybe start putting back pure sustenance like distilled water, or your own plants, vegetables that you grow that hopefully isn't grown from contaminated soil. I mean, I watched a documentary called Biosludge. It was like a 2 hour long documentary talking about they highlighted at least one source of potting soil, and they did studies on it to find all kinds of crap in it. All kinds, and then literal crap. Like they were taking like human feces and dehydrating it literally, and mixing it with mud, and that was what they found in this, alongside all kinds of other toxic chemicals that you would find in, like our sink water and stuff. It goes through the city water filter, but it doesn't filter out all kinds of trace chemicals and things. Like people are flushing their medications down the toilet, and a lot of it, figured out, I forgot what it was that they had. Like the majority of the chemicals they found in our water supply was something like, what is that shit that you take when you have an allergic reaction, like Benadryl? It was like something like Benadryl was a huge thing that they found. I forget, don't quote me on that, but it was amazing how toxic our own clean water fountain, tap water is, how toxic it is. It's crazy. So yeah, distilling your water, probably the best route to go there. I don't know if eating meat at all is going to take you to any sort of high vibrating state whatsoever. That right there alone could keep you at such a low vibrating state. I don't think you should opt to go for meat. Just my thoughts on it. But I'll have a lot more information hopefully, in April when I go through this transformation. And another one of the reasons why I'm going to do the whole breatharian thing and stop eating is, again, my research I'm doing into Saint Germain. Saint Germain being my last name, D. Saint Germain is my last name. And I find out after doing several weeks of research that Saint Germain was also, in the 16th century, he brought the first teachings of breatharianism to the world. So like, I find myself, maybe this is where my ego is killed enough to say the maybe here, because I feel like I'm reliving another maybe past life. Like if I was this Saint Germain guy in the past, and I'm back, y'all better watch out. Not y'all, this world better watch out. If I'm retracing steps from past lives, if I am this guy in my past lives, it would explain a lot. It would explain a lot why I'm not in jail right now for kicking a nurse 5 feet into a wall and sending 4 people running from my little ass. It would explain a lot, because I felt like those people weren't human. Like they were playing a role. They were acting in doctors and police uniform for that whole thing. Could be crazy. But there's a reason why I didn't get tased and cuffed and beaten with a baton or held harder down, or there's got to be a reason. What did they know? What did they know about me? If they knew who I really was, there's no doubt in my mind why they ran.
May we all be blessed with a quick ending of the ego's agony and a new beginning of a life of godliness in which suffering is unknown and in which the mind is finally and forever silenced, and the heart, the divine heart, can begin to speak.
That's deep. Broccoli used to be tiny little shoots. Even strawberries used to be as small as blueberries. Bigger seems to be a thing. Oof says, yes, they're all man-made through selective breeding. Even natural bananas are supposed to have seeds. Yeah, I know that one. Into says, I think they killed the old banana and brought out a new special one for us. No one's flowers. When I used to do my paintings in Paris, it was usually on Boulevard Saint Germain. Oh wow, yeah. His Saint Germain's teachings are starting to come back to the world. Um, as I started to talk about my discovery into Saint Germain, I began to realize that I wasn't the only one who had already discovered Saint Germain and his past teachings. And what was most bizarre for me very recently in this research was finding out the correlations between myself and Saint Germain. I think I wasn't meant to discover him until I have reached this part of my spiritual journey, because had I discovered him earlier, the teachings of Saint Germain would have influenced me much earlier on, and I wouldn't have the realization that I have now of like, I've been through experiences that he's talking about before I heard about him talking about it. That is confirmation to me that I have gone through something amazing. And for me to find myself talking so much about healing the world and purifying the soul and unconditional love being the strongest magical force that we need to figure out how to harness and resonate in our souls, like for me to find out that that is who I am on my path that I got here, I got to all by myself, to find out that now when I'm researching my own ancestry in Saint Germain, he is also all about all of that, all of it. The correlation right there tells me that I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track hard. And the evil forces of the world, they're scared of anybody on this path. Oh, I gotta replace my mouse battery. I can't wait till I get. You guys are gonna see me take this mouse and smash it into a million pieces one day on my live stream. I promise. I hate this mouse. So it means a lot to find out this stuff on my own, and then to find out that it's in books and in teachings since the 16th century, in spiritual manuscripts, in ashrams like this guy's teaching in. Something's been communicating with me for a long time, and that volume level that it's been communicating with me on has been very low. And it communicates, the same source is communicating with every one of us, every one of you. And I guarantee you, if you're not vibing at a level where I am or even higher, I'm sure it's still, that volume level is still very low for all of us. Why is it very low? Again, could it be the food, the poison in the food and the water and the Wi-Fi and the signals, all the stuff bombarding us? Like, I think so. That's where my research is leading me. We're going to listen to a video coming up where he talks a little bit about Terence McKenna and Terence McKenna's journey into drugs, and how drugs are able to supersede the ego and allow you to be in the state of divinity that I was on my Jesus experience. And the way he puts it makes total sense. It's also why I figure I need drugs to kickstart my experience. It's all coming together, making a whole lot of sense. That's probably going to be on the video titled "The Algorithm Has No Rhyme or Reason." But right now, we got "The Heart is Ripped Apart" by Divergent Drives. I put these two heart-titled ones together so as not to switch the subject up too much at one time. After this 12 minutes, it's going to get into that whole thing I was just talking about with Terence McKenna. I haven't listened to this one at all, so let's go. Let me read the chat before I get into this. Our vegetables are as man-made as our weed strains. Yeah, I get you. I think it was a nudge to get me to investigate Saint Germain, says No One's Flower. Could be. We get We get nudged like that, trust me. Us that are really trying to heal ourselves and be something better for the world and make huge changes, we get nudged in little ways just like that. Oofmatic says, my grandmother is in a New Age religion called Church Universal Triumphant. She talked about Saint Germain, but stated that he's now an ascended master, no longer reincarnating. Oh, yeah. I think he was given the opportunity to reincarnate after he ascended, and he did that, and he came back through several other lives. Who knows? You know, that's something that if I was an ascended master and knew how much misinformation we had going on in the world, I'd put that out there. I'd say, oh yeah, I'm not coming back no more, and let the forces of evil take that and celebrate it. But then I'd still come back. I'd go through the back door with that. Who knows? I think when you end up like an ascended master like that and you see how this world is, you don't just give up on it. Here we go.
One of the most brilliant minds of the 19th century was Hegel. And Hegel's concept of the dialectic was an extraordinary breakthrough in intellectual history. An amazingly simple idea, and yet no one had ever thought of it before. People understood the law of three, but they understood it mathematically and spatially, not temporally. But Hegel's breakthrough was to understand the principle of the unfoldment of history as dialectical. His philosophy of history was an extraordinary revelation of the inevitability of the dialectic, culminating in the revelation of absolute spirit. But what he didn't get is that the dialectic is the equivalent of a waveform. Crest is thesis, the trough is the antithesis, and the next crest is the synthesis. And so the waveform is continually evolving dialectically. But the wave is itself a dialectical element that emerges from the particle. And so particle, thesis, wave, antithesis, field, synthesis. Now the dialectic is operating in this same way at every fractal level of infinite complexity. There's macro-dialectic and micro-dialectic, and dialectic that's happening in different ways at every level of your consciousness. And this dialectic functions as the unfoldment of the energies of your drives. Now, the ego drives are divergent. The soul's drives are convergent.
Oofmatic, man knows big words. I know, I'm still trying to get the meaning of dialectic, and I'm attempting to use as many context clues in this video as I can to figure out what he's exactly talking about. I'm not claiming to know. I'm not claiming to have latched onto this and understood this at all yet. 2 minutes, 3 minutes in almost. But I'm going to hear it out. It's only a 12-minute long one. The next one is a bit more digestible.
This leads to an entirely different dialectical panorama, so that if one is in the ego, one will discover that every day there are more conflicts, more extreme differentials between what one drive wants and what another drive wants. Literally, the ego is tearing itself apart because of its extreme differential in its desires that are incompatible with one another. But within the dialectic of the ego, which can only explode, it cannot implode, there is no annihilating force, counterforce, that can oppose the chaos that increases exponentially as the drives receive the energies of the thirst for satisfaction that becomes ever more desperate as the ego loses its center and requires a kind of jouissance to stabilize itself. But each element of stability is contrary to the drive that needs stability of another sort, a contrary sort. And so those divergent drives are literally causing nervous breakdowns and inability to function and attention deficit. So the dialectical movement is required from ego to soul because the soul's drives are convergent upon the self. The soul wants liberation from the chaos. But until one makes the shift from the thesis of ego to the antithesis of soul, one cannot even imagine the synthesis of the real self that resolves all problems at all levels, because the dialectic moves omnidirectionally from the 0 point, and its drives increase in their power as they move outward, emanating in all directions from the self in a total cosmic explosion that is also the implosion into the singularity simultaneously. So the dialectic is operating both temporally and extratemporally. And one has to understand the drive, the dialectic at the level of the phenomenal and the noumenal. Once one understands this, one is able to...
Thank you, Oof. Yeah, that's number 2 of that, inquiry into metaphysical contradictions and their solutions. That makes sense. I've experienced at the peaks of some of my trips, I've experienced feeling as though there were 3 of me. A force of good, a force of anger and frustration and the opposite of all that good, and then the me, the ego, caught in the middle. Like a child looking above at 2 parents, both stark in contrast from each other. A good force and evil force, me caught in the middle. And the frustration I had in that moment was, why can't you 2 ominous forces coexist for a common purpose? Why is there the evil? Let's get rid of this one. But you can't. This is the whole yin yang, white, black, good, evil, opposing forces. And they coexist in a chaotic fashion. And I felt at that time that I was like a car being driven in 2 different directions. And I think this is kind of what he's talking about.
Achieve the synthesis very easily. In the same way, one has to recognize it at every moment. Our 3 mantras are dialectically organized, but within each mantra, there's a dialectic. The Om, the Nama, and the Shivaya are a dialectical movement. And the same with the Om, Shiva, Hum, Om, Tat, Sat. There's a dialectical movement. Tesla saw it in the matter-energy transform of the 369. It's present everywhere. And once one masters that dialectical process and recognizes that it emerges ultimately from the supreme level of consciousness, then one gets the realization that the world is the product of the emanations of the energies that come from the center point. To the extent that you have achieved the absolute simplicity of the supreme selfhood that is our true nature, then the world becomes a perfectly, beautifully expressed mandala in which the emanations of all of those energies dialectically unfold in manifest waves of increasing beauty, increasing intelligence, increasing absolute resolution to all of the apparent problems that seemed to exist within a mind that was not centered in its absolute empowerment. And so all of the drives of all of the omnidirectional intentions of the dialectic at every level are seeking that 0 point, but they can't find it because they come from it and they are emergent properties of it. And therefore, that final dialectic is not the ground of being, the search for the ultimate recognition and the fruit of the efforts, but the realization that the ground and the search are contained within the fruit, and the fruit is always already present here and now, because the dialectic of time itself, of past, present, future, culminates in the eternal present that is beyond the dialectic itself. So it's the beyond of the dialectic that reorganizes all the drives that are moving chaotically and brings them into the convergent center that enables them to flower again from that ultimate point of goodness, beauty, truth, love, and light. It is this realization that enables the instantaneous attainment of liberation that does not require an unfoldment through time, because time itself is an element of the dialectic, space, time, and the eternal present. Once one understands that, one is able to leapfrog past all of the intervening modulations of consciousness into its ultimate absorption into the absolute. It is this window of opportunity that opens only at the very end of time, when all of those drives of the dialectic multiplied infinitely in all of the chaotic sentient beings of the world results in all of the vectors summing up to 0. And it's that moment now that is being approached that will open the portal of consciousness into liberation for every being whose convergent drives of the soul have led to a desperate yearning for that liberation. And it will be fulfilled when all other divergent intentionalities have been released. It's that one-pointedness for the 0 point that blasts through the eye of the needle into the infinite.
I'm pretty sure I have to be in a heightened state of consciousness to fully grasp what he's talking about here. But let's hear it out until the end. The next video, as I said, is way more digestible. Yeah, word of the day. How many times did he say dialectic? Anybody counting?
This realization can only happen when the ego's chaos is representing a thesis that one has overcome through the soul's antithetical movement back into oneness and the synthesis.
All right. That was deep. That was so deep I could barely follow what he's saying. But I get it on a level of, you know, yeah, I can't even explain it in a way remotely as explainable as he did. So I'm not even going to try. I just understand the chaotic forces, these ominous forces that work chaotically together, and you have to go so far down and crashed into the bottom, have the hardest, most anguish-ridden times of your life to see nothing but the light. And I've been there. I lived through that. I'm bumping the bottom right now. And the only reason I'm here putting out any of this is because I've tasted being way up there. I've tasted that. And I've crashed all the way back down. Multiple times even. It's hard to sustain that level of consciousness and vibration. And it's a chaotic mix of energies to even get one to be pushed into that direction. But you pretty much have to fall flat on your face to realize that there's something else out there, or you'll kill yourself. Into says, this system doesn't give us roots, but makes us grow fast, very backwards, diverging masses from nature and tranquility. Yeah, I'd agree. I agree. All right, this next one here, I'm making myself a tea right now in case you guys wondered why I'm moving about. The next one, the algorithm has no rhyme or reason. This is where it gets into Terence McKenna and drugs and vibrations and crystals, and it's an interesting one. It's way more digestible, so this should be more enjoyable to listen to as well, so we don't have to figure out the whole time what the hell he's talking about. Here we go.
So the ego, as it developed and became in Kali Yuga the primary operating system, rather than the superconscious system that had been functioning in harmony with nature, the ego, because it's behind, it's a half a second slow, it needs to master the external nature using other forms of relating, which are principally forms of deception and domination. Okay? So the ego's basic modus operandi is deceiving the other as to what you really think and feel and want. And the more that one is successful in deception, which is the basic, geostrategy that goes on and at every level of politics and war and interpersonal conflict, the more that deception, and including self-deception, so that one can truly function with a poker face and without giving away secrets, one has to oneself not know. It creates yet another layer of ignorance within the ego of its own intentions. And it produces then a need to dominate the other, using whatever powers it has, whether of manipulation or of force. And eventually there is a gap between one's actual power in the world and the force that one uses to try to control and dominate elements that are out of control. And that conflict between real power and the force that comes out of a desperation of the ego's sense of lack to try to control both one's own body, one's own behavior, and relating, and the indeterminate other becomes the obsessive focus of the ego that is completely externalized. So as the ego's separation from its natural and supernatural alignment with the unfoldment of what is to be, what is to become, then it begins to use its intelligence in the development of technology. Because technology then is the focus of one's intelligence on the objective sphere. And the ego mind cannot control its subjectivity and cannot control its own behavioral proclivities, but can control objects in the world. And so the focus of intelligence is to create technologies that will give it more of a sense of control. And of course, those technologies then become more and more weaponized. And the more that it creates an external technology, the less it has access to the psychotechnology, to the potencies of accessing the superconscious. The more it gets stuck in a subject-object duality in which the other is always a potential enemy, and therefore it is rational to be in a state of paranoia. And in that state, then, one depends upon the external and the capacities of the phenomenal objective world rather than the powers of consciousness in their purity and unborn superconscious capacities to redream the world from the source of its unmanifest ground. And once that is lost, then one simply becomes more and more desperate to try to regain that lost control through objective means. And what that results in, and has now historically resulted in, is a secondary bifurcation between the conscious cognition of the technologizing ego and the non-conscious cognitions of the technological extensions of our consciousness. In other words, computers. So we depend now, because computers function much faster than consciousness, right? Consciousness is a half second slow. The computers are much faster. In nanoseconds, they will determine what will take several seconds or more for human consciousness to determine. And so more and more of the activities of the modern world are taken over by computers. They're given to computers, like trading, Wall Street trading. You know, they are done by algorithms, by computers that are trading in and buying and selling in nanoseconds, making a half cent here and another penny here, and all of those functions now that used to require human judgment, discernment, wisdom, are taken over by the algorithms that are put into the operating systems of these giant computers. So was it yesterday that or the day before, I forget, where there was this supposedly false alarm that in Hawaii that an ICBM had been launched and was about to land on Hawaii and destroy it, right? Everybody heard that, right? Now, I think that's a false flag because they have a lot of fail-safe mechanisms, and I don't think that happened by accident. I think that was a preparation for something. But it could. We are on a hair-trigger alert in terms of Russia, US, China, North Korea, no doubt. Whatever countries have nuclear weapons, they are controlled by these computer systems, not by human judgment. And there isn't enough time any longer for human consciousness to be able to respond with reflection and with an ability to think about what we should do, because you'll be annihilated if you don't respond immediately. You'll be annihilated anyway, but the response is to counterattack before one's incinerated. And so the systems operate now outside of human control. This is the whole Skynet thing, the whole science fiction terror of what would happen in some future. Well, it's here now. And consciousness is in a conflict with these non-conscious cognizers that are of our own creation. They are the Frankenstein of the postmodern world, that it has now more intelligence, more speed, but only in accord with an algorithm that is based on the paranoia of the human programmers, and not based on wisdom that can be downloaded from the superconscious.
And he said it right there. It's hard to fathom the possibility that you can suddenly download the answers to anything you want to know, especially especially if it's a secret within somebody else's past that you're sitting right next to. When I was in this Jesus mode, I was able to look at people around me and know things about them that shaped their lives, and had the understanding of how I could help reshape their lives for the better. But I was not supposed to know these things about them to begin with. But when you are connected like that, you have all the knowledge of the world at your fingertips, especially if you're going to help somebody. You're totally given access to their soul and the darkness of it, to help eliminate that darkness and help them shine brighter and to be better people. And there's forces that will stop you from doing just that. That's why my family freaked out on me. Like, they got to a point where they wanted to put that to the test on such a level where about 4 of them were in the same room telling me I was full of shit. And it didn't upset me. I just felt pity that I wasn't able to help them. And they kept telling me, "Oh, you don't know all this. You don't know all this. You don't have access to this otherworldly information." And my ego didn't care to prove myself, but I wanted to help them so that they would give me a chance to help them. And so I just busted it out and said, "Well, do you really want me to prove it to you?" And they were like, "Yeah, tell us something about us that you don't know." And I'm like, "Okay, something that you all share, that you all know, that I have no clue about?" "Yeah." And I busted it wide open. And they were like, "Huh?" And my aunt grabs me in the shoulder and like shoves me down the hallway and tells me to shut up. Sticks me in her room, closes the door, and starts talking Jesus to me. Starts asking me, "How do you know these things? Who told you?" And I'm like, I'm telling you, I know everything about you guys right now. And she just starts kind of like praying over me. And it freaked them out. That was really the point when they all started to freak out. And we have access to information like that. It can just be in a snap. We don't have to be like the ego self, half second behind, using computers to gather our sources of info. That's how they want it. They don't want us to have that link to source. So they pacify us by giving us this technology, and we've evolved this technology, and we utilize it, and we're crippled by it, more and more every day.
And so these stimulus response mechanisms that can operate with faulty information from a radar system or a satellite or some glitch that's created by some flaw in the electric grid or whatever. There are many, many permutations of what could create a flawed response. Even a flock of birds or other kinds of phenomena can do that. So we are very close and have been very close for a long time to accidental thermonuclear global war. And more and more of our daily lives are determined by these humongous computer systems that are processing the data from everything, every email, every phone call, every piece of data of the entire phenomenal human plane of interaction is being processed, but without wisdom, all on the basis of algorithms. And so these have replaced the capacity of human consciousness to control its own destiny. It seems that the only way out of this trap that has already been sprung on human consciousness by its own self-deception can be a return to that superconsciousness that can be ahead of the flow of time and be able to make use of aspects of nature, of the laws of physics that are not yet within the understanding or control or algorithmic jurisdiction of these computer systems. And it's by returning to that consciousness that is the source of the laws of nature and is by nature above those laws that the trajectory of what those laws would bring about as fate that would be determined by the current trajectory of consciousness can be altered from a timeless realm and dimension that has the ability to bring about a singularity that cannot be manifested from ego consciousness.
He gets deep. He does. He's basically telling us just how crippled we are by all these computers and these algorithms, pacifying us away from our true divinity and ability to download straight from source, to skip all the bullshit. And man, how do you help somebody realize the possibilities of your own self in expanded states of consciousness? You can't just tell people this stuff and expect them to believe it. You have to go through this. You have to experience this. And I would have thought all that was gibberish a long time ago had I not had the experience I had now probably 10 years ago. And I think that is the key to changing this world, to become egoless, full of unconditional love, vibrating high, not poisoning our bodies, being able to download information. Once we're able to do that, we're able to make more proper decisions in our life to sustain those high vibrations. You know, if you have desires in this world, you want a big fancy car, big fancy house, how do you go about doing that? Well, you got to make money, right? Well, how do you go about finding that job for that kind of money to make all that happen? Well, most cases, you know, people aren't really self-made enough to just start their own business. So they go work for somebody else. Where does that energy go? Where does, you know, you're working for this other company that's making shampoo and what are you doing? You're feeding a company that's poisoning everybody's scalps, you know, in some way that's not gonna vibe with you. You're not gonna even, once you're vibrating at such a level, you know that you cannot take that job because you are setting in motion a domino effect that you have no control over. You see? Like, that's why the source is telling me I can't be an actor no more. Once I vibe at that level, I can't be on camera talking about selling a product that I'm told to say does this or that on camera, and so they can use my likeness and my charm and make money to make more poisons or make more lies? What if their product is a piece of shit and they know it, but they make tons of money on it and they don't care? I can't support that. I can't do that. But I still want a nicer house or a vehicle or whatever. So I can't wait to see what the universe tells me I need to be doing when I reach this state again. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to give me instructions that's going to help me make a lot of money. And that will be okay with me as long as I am in that state of bliss that I have tasted before. Because that would mean I don't need money. I don't need my video games to make me happy. I don't need an external source to make me happy. I'm always going to be 100% happy and in bliss. And with no desires of this world or anything from any other. You know, I've lived that. And it was stolen from me. It was stolen from me. I was, you know, stuck with needles and stuck in a frickin' room, and it was terrible. I plan to get back to that at all costs. And hopefully you guys don't see a post on Facebook one day of, you know, RIP Horiishi, April 2022, died of starvation, dehydration, liver, kidney failure, something like that. But I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to purify my body as much as possible. And I can't figure out what kind of sustenance I would need to even take in to stay at that high level. So I would assume at this point the safest bet is to not eat anything. The only time I needed to drink anything was when I went out into the sun, into the hot day, and my body was sweating, and at that point needed hydration, but I didn't need hydration for any other reason for several days before that. I wasn't even thirsty. I wasn't even thirsty when I needed water. It wasn't a thirst, it was oh, my body's about to shut down if it doesn't get water. I need it now. I almost drank out of a water hose. And the thought of drinking out of a water hose began to give me these downloads of information of what could go wrong if I made that action or that choice happen. I would have garnished eyes that I didn't want on me. Going to a neighbor, going to some random stranger. How would you react if you looked out your window and saw a dude in all black walking down the street and all of a sudden walked in between two houses to go fiddle with a hose, and you'd never noticed this man before in your neighborhood? You'd be concerned. You'd probably call the police. You'd probably walk outside and be like, hey, who are you? What are you doing? You know, all these things. I didn't want any of those things. As soon as I thought about doing something, I got flooded with all the possibilities that could happen. And so I chose the best route possible, and that was to knock on that person's door instead, to ask for water. And I didn't get an answer. But the neighbor who was watching me from his window came outside and asked me if I was okay, if I needed anything. And I said yes. As a matter of fact, I'm desperately in need of hydration right now. Can you help me with a glass of water, or may I use your hose right there? That's good enough for me. The guy's like, no, don't use my hose. I'll go get you a glass of water. Turns out that man was a priest at the local church, and he asked to pray for me. Yeah, God led me down that path to have that experience. I don't know how I changed that man's life. And I don't know quite how it changed me, other than the fact that I know when I'm vibing at that state, I'll be taken care of. Somebody will come right out the woodworks to supply me with whatever it is I need. Need, not want. There's a difference. That was it was a very special thing to have happen to me at that time in my life. Doing great on day 6 of unpaid leave from the piece of shit company I worked for. Oh man, yeah, bro. I don't even. I can never work for another company. I can't. I'm never gonna. I would. I'd rather get thrown into the harshest of elements than to wake up to an alarm clock, to be around zombies of the world in a work environment. Mm-mm. Oh God, no, no way. At the same time, I still have to figure out what it is that I'm gonna do when I quit my acting career and no longer use this $1,200, $1,500 camera to make my money with. And I would love to, host streams like this all the time and relay my wisdom for the world and have Patreon subscribers and stuff, and this be my job. This has been a goal that I've failed on for 7 years now. My Patreon is about $16 a month, and thanks to those who do support my Patreon, you guys pay my phone bill and at random times get me my suicide medicine. Like today, I had to withdraw it so I can have enough money to pay my ride to go get my pot. And I needed that extra $17 or whatever it was that built up in there. But there'll come a time when I vibrate so high that I can't do 98% of the stuff that I do for enjoyment or money, pleasure. I'm going to have the voice tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't. A download, if you will. A download knowing of why I need to change, how I need to change. And it's going to thrust me into a completely different way of living. One that I can't see myself having a roof over my head for, or an internet connection to stream with, or a link to any of my friends or family. All that will essentially dissolve. It's scary only in the sense that I hope I enjoy it. I'm not scared to lose everything. I'm not scared to. I'm not worried that I won't survive, that I'll need something that I can't get. I know already that my needs will be handed to me on a silver platter. But that just means a glass of water here and there, or a roof over my head for a cold night or some bad weather. Those kinds of things I will have offered to me. I've already tasted that when I was homeless back, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever the Holly thing happened and I was homeless. I even told her from the start of that journey, don't worry about any of this. We're going to be well taken care of. And we were. We were. We even had random wants taken care of. Like, we would walk down the side of this. We were walking down the sidewalk, and just a minute before that, she was like, "Man, I really could use a cigarette right now." And then I was like, "Wait, stop!" I stopped my bike and I looked down, and we found I thought was a cigarette. And I was like, "Look, it's a brand new cigarette right here. It just fell out somebody's pack apparently." And she's like, "Oh wow, wait, no, look down again." And I looked down again. There was 4 more. I didn't even see. Right? Like they just manifested like magic. And I'm like, holy shit. That kind of stuff was happening. The first time I told her we'll be taken care of, she was like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, "Because I know." And then 5 minutes after that, I had found like a Heath bar on the ground. I'm like, "Look, this is one of my favorite candies. Oh, there's a couple of them." She's like, "Whoa, what?" Like we were just finding the little things, little signs that were given us hope. And when we found those cigarettes, we didn't even have a lighter. And I was like, "Don't worry, we'll find one of those too." And she's like, "How do you know this?" I'm like, "Because I know, feel it." And about 5 minutes later, I saw a shining thing in the rocks. It was somebody's lens from their glasses that was broken or something. There was just a lens sitting out there, and I went and grabbed it, and I was like, "This is our lighter." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I held up a cigarette to it, and I lit it right on fire, and I was like, "Go!" She's like, "What?" Our infinity lighter he'll never lose its gas, like that kind of stuff. So I know that when we're vibrating at that high level, we won't have a need for worry and paranoia or fear of lack of anything that we need. It's going to be there. We'll be whole. So that's why I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to take these steps And if I make it there, hopefully you guys take some notes so you can have the same journey. But I don't know if this journey is for everybody. I mean, I'm sure you all want bliss and love and wholeness, right? But how many of you guys have a house with a house note, or a mortgage you have to pay, or insurance for your car, and all these things that you have to function in the ways of the world just to keep going? I'm sure that's a yes for everybody listening to my voice right now, including myself. I'm in the same trap. For this reason alone, I think a lot of us are called to find our tribe, to live off grid, to live in a self-sustaining sort of commune. And I think that is the answer. Simply put, we'll be missing out on a lot of the things that we might enjoy as far as technological advances go, with television shows and radio and music, or whatever you guys take enjoyment in that involves a piece of technology. You know, essentially living this lifestyle means that you have to throw away all those things. It doesn't mix well. And it might be hard to comprehend that right now, but I didn't need any of that when I was in Jesus mode. I didn't even think about playing a video game, or think about sex, or think about a girlfriend or a partner or love or like that. No, I didn't need anything. I was completely high on life. So that happened in sort of a click for me one night, and I don't know what made the click. That's what's so confusing about it. I can't just assume that lifestyle and be happy because I've chosen those things for myself. That's not how it works. You have to figure out how to raise your vibration to that point. And when you do, you better hope that nobody else is relying on you to sustain anything that you sustain for them, because you won't want to anymore. You're not going to want to go to work to pay your bills anymore. You got children. You're not going to be able to raise them properly. So some people, by that alone, can't even take this journey yet. And I feel for a lot of you parents out there that could be listening to this right now. I don't have the answer for how that would be possible for you. There is a solution. I'm just not granted that answer yet. I'm not granted that download yet, not even for myself. But I'm one of those people. I have no ties. My whole place could burn up right now, and I could lose everything I've ever worked for materialistically in my life right now. And what it would be for me at this point of my spiritual evolution, I would just go, all right, that's all over with. Why? Why would I feel like that? Why would I feel a sense of relief? Because my ego is holding on to all of this, because it's scared to take the plunge back to that state that I know I've been to before, because I'm not vibrating at the level I magically click to. So if I lost it all right now, I'd be kind of freaking out, but at the same time would be forced into living that way. And that would be the sigh of relief. Hope that makes some sense. So I have, the ego is going to complain, Hori, right? Yeah. I might say, I'll put all my stuff in storage and go be on the beach. And when I'm on the beach, I'm going to be sitting there. My stomach's going to be growling. My ego's going to be like, well, time to walk to the convenience store and get yourself a honey bun, eh? But you grab a Coke while you're at it. I have to fight those thoughts in pain, alone, in the cold, with nobody. That's a little tough to just jump on into, buddy. Maybe if I had a big bag of mushrooms in my back pocket, I'd be okay about it. I'd be okay about it. I'm trying to find. Did we listen to the one where he talked about Terence McKenna? I don't think we listened to that one. I thought that was this one that I just played, but apparently it wasn't. And I wanted to finish that one, so give me a second to try to find it. I have to look through my browser history, maybe. Try to find it. I hope I find it here on this stream because I wanted to play that one. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna. Did I play the We're Not Living in a Dying World one? I don't think I played that one yet. You could play that one while I'm looking around for it. This is a pretty good one too.
The title was Living in a Dying World, but then we added, we are not living in a dying world. That's the illusion that we have to overcome, because there is no death and the world is only a simulation. We are projecting our consciousness in it, but we're not actually in it. And it is that realization that will enable us to function flawlessly and beautifully at the moment of greatest seeming adversity and chaos and oppression and demonic hegemony over the planet. So it is this understanding that will give us the power to prevail over the dark force and to bring out our laser swords of truth and light and wisdom to be able to do battle with those dark forces and to overcome them through that unifying power of light that subsumes the dark as its own privation, that can be defeated through the offering of an intense level of the energy of love, of divine love, not through hatred, not through anger, not through conflict, not through considering anyone an enemy, but through unifying the field once more in an absolute harmony through the realization of the power of consciousness. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in that retreat. And I hope everyone will be able to attend, because I think it will accelerate your capacity to be able to harness the power of spirit and use it in your life at the moments of greatest challenge, when you really need to have the power that keeps you in an energy field that is protected from negative vibrations and projections and even physical attack. So this is a very important teaching that is.
Back that up. Super important.
Challenge when you really need to have the power that keeps you in an energy field that is protected from negative vibrations and projections and even physical attack.
Even physical attack. I've tasted imperviousness to physical attack, and I still find it fascinating that it's possible to get punched right in the face and not feel it, and to feel compassion for the one that's attacking you in that very moment, to not feel like you need I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel pain. Nothing negative. I felt my only thought in the moment was, how do I help this person? How do I help this person not feel whatever it is going through them to make them want to attack me? How could I help this person? And that's vibrating. That's the thought forms going through your head when you're vibrating that high. You have no need to defend yourself because you don't feel the pain. You're just a service to others. You're a service to God, and when you're a soldier of God in that way, you gain superpowers. That's what he's talking about.
So this is a very important teaching that is being transmitted that will be of practical use and value, I think, to everyone in this final period. Okay, so thank you. We'll also have a book group where we're going to be talking about all of these songs in depth. And in some of them, we'll go line by line to understand why did he say that and what's the meaning of that, so that we will be able to actually understand at a much deeper level than we might have been able to grok from just hearing the poem read one time. So I hope that people on the live stream will be able to attend that book group as well and to participate in the exegesis of the book and the internalization of its meanings in your own life, to overcome whatever obstacles, whatever traumas, whatever repressed aspects of consciousness must still be brought to the surface for you to achieve wholeness and unity of consciousness. And this is the order of the day, that it must be achieved now, so that we don't have any karmic residue that forces us to come back and have another lifetime at the end of Kali Yuga. We don't want to have to do that. We want to graduate now and be liberated while alive in this body, and not have to be reborn at the moment of destruction.
That's my ultimate
So
goal.
please
I don't want to come back.
take seriously the seriousness of the situation, and how not only is it a matter of life and death, but it's actually a matter of many lifetimes ahead and of overcoming the illusion of death. So a word to the wise to take advantage of what the sages are offering, and of the information that's available to help us overcome the illusion.
That's what streams like this are for. His streams, my spiritual streams, my spiritual flavored streams, is also, we can wake up from this and not have to keep doing it again. I think if you just take a look around the world, you could most likely conclude that you don't want to do this again. That's why I'm here.
The humans.
All right, so we're gonna watch this one. This one might be the one with where he talks about Terence McKenna. I really want to find that because I wanted to finish the rest of it. But this one, I don't think we've played this one on the stream because it's not one of the ones titled up here. So hopefully this is the one I wanted to play a few videos ago. And I'll know about 6 minutes in if it's the one. If not, I already know that what I did hear of this one was good. So let's have a listen to this. And yeah, makes sense. My first daughter at 18 made me stuck on the spot, so to say. Yeah, otherwise you would have explored the world. Yeah, I don't even know if I can get the words out to say what I want to say about that in this moment. But I've been robbed of that sort of stuck a couple of times in my life. And what makes me okay about not being able to raise my children is the fact that I'm not stuck. and I'm free to grow without a tether or owing some woman child support. You know, my kids are all taken care of. They don't need anything financially from me. If they did, my words right then would have been different. But they don't. I know that what I'm building for them isn't a savings account. It's experiences, tallying up experiences that will allow me to help foster their adult lives with wisdom they won't find from anyone else in their life. So in that regard, I'm okay about this journey, but I do yearn to, have that family and watch my kids have their first experiences going down slides or swimming in pools or seeing an ostrich for the first time or whatever. I yearn for those things, but I've had to give up all of that 3 different times. My life has been a wild ride, but in the end, it will prove fruitful, and I'm banking on that. But here we go. Human spirit is rising. Now our divine spirit must be activated. This should be pretty deep. I like this one.
The human spirit is now rising in the world, awakening to the nature of the situation on the phenomenal plane. And thus the ruling elite are in a panic mode, and they recognize that they cannot prevent the tide from turning against them and from there being mass arrests for genocide and other crimes against humanity. And because of this, they have to divert attention very quickly. And since they cannot prevent their own populations from rising against them, in the West, they will use Russian missiles to do it for them, and Chinese weapons of mass destruction. And it's for this reason, for playing this last card, that they have built massive underground cities with stockpiles of food. And they are beginning to move into this next phase in which there will be massive destruction by other means than is currently happening. And this acceleration of events will have many implications, because when the war goes kinetic, it will happen in space, underwater, under the ground.
I may have played this one on the last stream, and it's not the one that I'm trying to find either. If you guys heard if you've heard this already, let me know in the chat. Pretty sure negative don't like positive. If positive is too big, negative will back out. Otherwise, it gets destroyed. It dissolves. Yeah. The way that negative could even hold a candle is to find a way to make it equal to you, and the way it does it is through fear. I had first-hand experience with that when I was helping Holly through her shit, and I rescued her that night, and I literally pulled the demon out of her that was making her have a freak-out panic fit on my bathroom floor, and I threw it out the window only to sit there and feel something coming back in the room that felt like dread. It felt like I needed to run. It felt like danger. It felt like I was about to get attacked. And when she started saying that it's coming back in me, it's what she said, it's coming back in me, that spooked me, caused a little bit of fear, and that fear it fed on, and it became an equal, and it possessed her all over completely. And that was one of the occasions when she got up and she hit me twice in the face, and I was like, I just talked about it a minute ago, and I didn't feel pain, and I felt like I needed to still help her, like figure out what part of her, was so angry to have attacked me like that when I didn't deserve it. I was her salvation for the night, just gave her a clean shower and new clothes and helped her escape from people that were trying to track her down and shove her back into a truck to drug her up again. I didn't deserve to get hit in the face. It was that love that I had in me that allowed me to be impervious and invulnerable, invincible.
And it will destroy everything in most parts of the world. And because the war will take place in cyberspace as well, it will cut communications, and it will disrupt every system, and it will stop the import of fuel and food and other supplies. So the reverberations and effects of this will strike everywhere. And we must be prepared spiritually and psychologically, as well as in terms of our physical preparations. The world is made of vibrational frequencies. It's the pattern of those vibrations that determine form, that determine structure, that determine mass, that determine the flow of energy and connectivity. Because every apparently separate thing is simply a manifestation of the same vibrational energy. That energy exists at different levels.
I think I found the video I was looking for. This one is also definitely worth taking in. But the next one we're going to watch is The Basis of White Magic.
And of different qualities, from the spiritual to the psychological to the pranic to the electromagnetic and to the sonic. All of these different forms of vibration are having effects on the world. But the most important effect comes from the vibration of pure spirit. And it is that that will morph the way that the world appears. Not radioactivity and not the vibrations of EMFs. It will be the vibrations of pure spirit that prevail and that determine the conditions of life. And if we are attuned to that vibration that is immune to the effects of the lower levels of vibrations, there will be safety.
Like realizing that the woman you just rescued has a demon literally possessing her and hitting you in the face, you are immune to that evil possessing that otherwise innocent being.
But if we fall into identification with matter, then our consciousness will be affected by the material level of vibrational frequency. So it is very important now to establish the consciousness in that state that is transcendent of all of the lower vibrational fields. This was studied in the Virashaiva wisdom school that was developed around the 12th century in India, around the same time as St. Francis in the West and Dogen Zenji in Japan.
St. Francis, is that Francis Bacon? Was Saint Francis Bacon? If so, then that's Francis Bacon was said to be one of the incarnations of Saint Germain.
And other great beings
Ascended beings.
who recognized the importance of the shift of vibrational frequency. Their wisdom school came up with a scripture to describe the transformation of frequencies. They call it the Shunya Sampadane. I think I've read from this before, yes? Was it? Must have been some years ago. You don't seem to be remembering it. But in any case, it's a very important scripture. They refer to Shiva as Shunya. And they carry a small lingam in a box in a necklace, because the idea is you shouldn't go to a Shiva temple. Your body should be a Shiva temple. And this lingam is symbolic of the vibrational representation of the vibrational frequency of the presence of Shiva in your heart. And if your body is vibrating with that frequency, it will have a protective energy field around it. But it has to be remembered. It has to be an object of devotion, not the physical talisman that they are carrying, but what it symbolizes, so that the one carrying it remembers always to abide in the heart and vibrate at that level of perfection of divine presence that creates a mandala of energy around one that contours the space of the Umwelt, of the world around one's environment, that produces certain synchronicities that would otherwise not be able to occur. It's this divine frequency that...
Like, for example, walking around in my divine state and needing water all of a sudden, the synchronicities of a priest coming out to give me water.
It is the key to moving through this final phase of Kali Yuga with immunity and with the capacity to enable others to be protected by that energy field if there is enough of a grid of unified consciousness that can produce an entire dome of divine energy around a community. So,
like, find your tribe, live off grid, create a commune of spiritual people for just that reason? Noted.
So this is the project that we must complete very rapidly. They talk about the various stages of development of one's vibrational frequency. That begins at the lowest stages, or stalas as they are called, with, let's see, I think the first one they call is the Linga Dharana stala. And then they go to the Bhakta stala, where the devotion becomes intense. And then the Maheshvara stala, where the supreme consciousness is able to be truly connected with while one is in one's daily consciousness. And then the Pranalinga stala, where one's entire body is vibrating as the lingam. And then they reach the level of the Sharana stala. And I'll read a little bit from that one. Experiencing of pure delight as a result of deep and continued meditation is the main feature of this stala. There will be intermittent flashes and streams of some sensations, but they will be replaced now by the self seeing its own form shining in divine splendor. There will be no more concern for the workaday world. The illusion of personal will is burnt, Awareness of the body is forgotten, and all external phenomena have crumbled out of one's consciousness, and all this is replaced by a total serenity. So a vibration of absolute peace is sustained in whatever circumstances.
Been there. Truth, fact.
Where the conditioned or unconditioned mind stops, there the stillness reigns. Where consciousness of being oneself as an individual reaches an end, there ecstasy and ananda dwell, and one beholds the light of the inner linga as a resplendent blaze.
I did play this one on the last stream. I'm remembering all this right now. Sorry if it's a repeat for some of you, but it's well worth a listen.
So they go more into the unification of the two levels of knowledge, of the phenomenal plane knowledge of what's happening in the world, and the supreme knowledge, and the integration of those two takes place. But then at the next phase, the Ekyasthala, where Ekya means the unification, here the self is absorbed in the intense and focused meditation on the transcendent, passing over the limits of mind and entering fully into the ecstatic state. The superconsciousness is completely devoid of any psychic residue or mental deposits. All right, this is very key. There must be no deposits of mentation, mental chatter that still arise. The purification in this phase must be complete so that the vibrational frequency remains stable. Otherwise, it will collapse at times, and then negative energies can enter.
Yes. That is so very important. You can't let the responsibilities of the world and the bills that you owe and this thing that you got to do to sustain your worldly life has to go. You can't let all that back in when you're in this state. And you certainly won't feel the need to either. But those around you that aren't vibing at that level, so to speak, are not going to understand you. They're not going to want to even put up with you. In my case, I was spewing so much wisdom, I had people telling me to shut up. They don't understand what I'm saying. They don't want to know. All that stuff. You have to, you'll end up maybe going through the same thing if you reach what I've gone through, and it's a little concerning for those around you.
So, the supreme state is not conscious of anything in the world. Everything happens perfectly, but the consciousness does not deviate into the world anymore. All of that happens spontaneously by itself, but the consciousness remains self-contained. To attain it, one has to focus on nothing but the contemplation of the self, which is shunya. Somewhat of a lower type is where there is some retention of self-volition when absorbed in the superconscious state. So there's a lower level to this and a higher level. If there's any sense of volition, in other words, effort required to stay in this state, then the vibrational frequency will not be perfectly established. But you must start by making effort, and then it becomes effortless. So one of the vachanas, which are one of the talks or discourses, describes this Ekyasthala in this way. The one who, having known the real, the supreme reality, is past all care. All right, so you can measure how close you are to how many cares you have, how many worries, how many concerns about the world.
I must have been in the highest level because I didn't care about anything. Like, I had no desires, no need to eat, to sleep, to pee, to poo.
I didn't care about nothing. I was all just like this, like for most of my day, just meditating. And I don't sit there and meditate like this. That's not even how I meditate. Like, that's like, I always thought that was some sort of virtue signaling to hold your hands a certain way while you're meditating. And no, I found myself doing that because it kept me in the state of high vibration. For whatever reason, that's a thing.
When you reach this state, all care must have ended, or you won't be in that vibrational frequency. Once the truth is known and realized, experienced, there is no change in your state. No worry, anxiety, or concern. There is only calm, vision, and tranquility. So your tranquility must never be interrupted by anything, external or internal. Second, you become the real hero, the vanquisher of death. One has become immortal in the sense that the consciousness is beyond the chain of cause and effect.
In that time period, I thought a little bit about how I could put myself in between two warring nations. And if I could just like stand there like this and speak to this side and this side in the middle to bring unity and stop a war. That's the only thought aside from my own self contemplation that I had. And that was still a thought of love for the rest of the world, a thought of healing. And I thought that I could do that. I was just not in the physical place to do so. So that's interesting.
And beyond the cycle of birth and death. You become the glorious embodiment of the Most High. The glorious one has the direct vision of the Supreme. It perceives the soul in all beings to be its own.
That too.
It is the vision of the self in all and all in the self.
That's why I wanted to help everybody around me. I felt like it was helping everyone. If I would just change one person, that was changing me as well.
The blessed who has attained the bliss, consequent to the transformation of the human nature into the divine nature, the blessed one has attained the state of final blissful consciousness. The perfect one who inhabits the void, here is where the shunyata comes in. Perfection is attained and the perfect one is shunya. It is this totality of emptiness of all that is phenomenal, of all that is not the self, all that is not the supreme real, has been attained. That is the meaning of perfection. Okay. The incarnation, self-begot, who has attained the perfect poise, the spontaneous one, is the supernal conscious being with perfect composure. Nothing will ever disturb you in that state. Nothing will.
Well, unless you get the cops called on you and allow people to strap you to a hospital bed and stick you with whatever needle they have that takes you right out of that state. I allowed myself to get in that cop car. I allowed myself to be deceived into getting right into that cop car after several interactions with 6-7 different police officers trying to figure out a way to put me in cuffs, and they couldn't until they told one of the females to come over there and tell me that she was a prostitute. And although I can't tell you if I fully believed it, I wanted to hear her out and had nothing else better to do but to help somebody. So I got in the car and was talking to her about that the entire way to the hospital. So there's some things that I'm not going to do again next time around, and that's let anybody put cuffs on me.
Will ever create any vibrational frequency that deviates from that supreme peace. So this is the state we must achieve now, very quickly, to establish a protective energy field around the ashram. And this is something each one of us must be responsible for. We must take full responsibility and not say, oh, they're not doing it yet, why should I? Each one must go first. Each one must recognize that there are no obstacles except your own attachment to the ego and its petty concerns. And none of that will matter soon. But you have to have established the real self as your vibrational frequency before you recognize that indeed this is the end, that the body will soon die, the world is over, there is no more going back to some normal life, there is nothing to hold on to in the phenomenal plane. Only the supreme reality, the singularity, will abide. But if you are not in that vibrational frequency before this final conflagration hits, then the anxiety of the ego, the traces of those mental deposits, will prevent you from ascending and reaching liberation. So now is the moment to take advantage of the relative peace that we still have before the backlash of events of this final phase of chaos ensues, and use it to attain your real self and the vibrational frequency that will provide continuity of self-government through the transition from the singularity into the next vibrational mandala, which will be Sat Yuga. But that mandala of consciousness can only be created when the only ones left within the plane of full consciousness are those who are vibrating at that level of perfection. It is that vibrational frequency that creates the new world. It must be strong, it must be unified, and it must be omnicentric. So I hope you understand and that you're on board to be fully an avatar of Shiva and no longer deviate into any mental, egoic consciousness. This is our duty, our sacred task, our responsibility, our privilege, our grace, and our opportunity for liberation. May you all have the courage and the wisdom and the perseverance to achieve God realization and establish that as the vibrational frequency of this ashram, so that the world will have an anchor in the presence of God that will offer protection to all who attune to it.
BCB says, I don't think it will stop you from ascending. I think it will be a more painful process. When you say it, you don't think it will stop you. What are you talking about, it? Talking about when the world has its big shift, when shit hits the fan, so to speak. I know a lot of my close spiritual people are really feeling something big happening, coming. And this is, I think, the state we need to achieve within ourselves. Everyone has to go first to be protected from whatever's really about to hit. We have a sort of grace period right now with all this truth coming out, now in the mainstream. All of us crazy conspiracy people are, for a while now, have been, validated in the mainstream eyes. A lot of people are waking up. Those who've been sleeping are starting to wake up. Greetings, Robert. How's it going, man? Dang, just got an insight. I'll explain in a minute. Rolling a joint. Haha. It as your resonance frequency. So you don't think your resonance or frequency will stop you from ascending? It'll just be a more painful process to ascend? Well, I understand what he's talking about when, you can't let the ways of the world influence you anymore. You can't be caught in the world, but it's not feasible for most people to let it all go. We've got jobs and houses and bills and everything, so it's kind of difficult to be that when you have so many attachments and other people relying on you for A, B, C, D, and E. So let's hope that this was the one that I wanted. It's 12 minutes long, and I'm going to end the stream after this one because in about 30 minutes I'm going to go to the marijuana dispensary out here in Louisiana for the first time and get some of my suicide medicine. And I'm hoping that this is going to talk a little bit about Terence McKenna's journey and how substances like pot and mushrooms and LSD and things like that alter your vibration and throw you into this divinity, and how the ego sort of pads that, and in some cases even blocks that, or causes a physical ailment to stop you. And he says in Terence McKenna's case it was a brain tumor. So let's see. Yeah, we create our anchors which keep us here. Yeah, that's why I don't question at all why the voice told me, let all this go, put it all in storage, and go to the beach, be alone, stop eating, stop relying on the government for a food stamp card. You won't need food. Stop everything. Just go out and be by the water, to where every day I wake up and I'm in a beautiful beach with blue water around me. I can go swimming or talk to the birds, or any passerby that would come into contact with me. A conversation I would have with them would be one of enlightenment and would change them and touch them in various ways. That's why I wanted to. That's why I want to go there. I want to do that path. And I'm still not 100% sure if it's going to happen. I'm still trying to anchor myself here, doing video work and trying to reach that level of vibrations. But I'm dealing with clients that want me to do things I don't want to do, or feel as a chore, or even sometimes just makes me uncomfortable or nervous, or these negative things that's just paying my bills, like that's dissonance. That's going to keep you from vibrating at that resonance, that frequency where everything will become synchronistic and blissful. So it's really, I'm trying to figure out if there is a way to balance it. And if I find out that there's not, I'm done and I'm jetting off to the beach, or I'm going to jet off to some part of the woods that magic mushrooms grow in all the time. And I'm just going to forage every day. I'm going to wake up to find more magic mushrooms from my back pocket. That's kind of a secondary plan B on that one. So, all right, the basis of white magic. Hope this is the one. If not, let's learn about the basis of white magic anyway.
Yes, sir.
You've recently changed the theme of the upcoming meditation intensive in September, the basis of white magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask why you had chosen to do that at this time, and also what is white magic?
Okay. This is a very deep and nuanced subject, right? Which is why a whole retreat is necessary, and I can't give you a very brief answer that really gets to the depths of it, or we'll be here all night just on this one question. But the original capacities of the human being in our purest state of consciousness before the fall, in that lost golden age that's now a legend or a myth, but is in fact a reality, we were avatars, manifestations of that supreme power of God that made us also total masters over magic. Because magic, the same word magia is maya, it's the illusion. But when you are master over the illusion, you can use the illusion to bring great joy. You can manifest what you want. You want a milkshake in the palm of your hand? I don't think you will in the golden age, but whatever it is you want, you got a drink. You know, it's like on Star Trek. They have those machines that do it. But in Satyuga, we do it just with our minds. And that's why we can create flying machines and have all kinds of technological capacities that don't come from needing computers and other modern technological apparatus, because it's all done totally within consciousness itself. But these powers are present. And once the fall happened, then especially after the Copper Age, the ancient civilizations that were not at the level of Satyuga, but were, from our perspective, filled with tremendous wisdom and power that we no longer have, like ancient Egypt, Atlantis, Lemuria, places like that, Hyperborea, that are again now mostly shrouded in mythical, mysterious, distorted understanding. But these much higher civilizations were the last civilizations to be able to use magic in a legitimate way that was truly white magic, because there were still priests, shamans, beings of great integrity and light, who were the pillars of those civilizations and the leaders, who were able to use those powers for good without being corrupted. Once we entered into Kali Yuga, every ego became corruptible, including shamans and including yogis, including Brahmins, priests, etc., who were vowed to be pure and uncorruptible, but could not keep their vows. Just that power was lost. And so in that time period, it became one of the laws of the Dharma that yogis should not practice magic. Okay. Now there were those who broke away from that and took the Vama Marga, the left-hand path, and went into magic. And this is part of what Tantra became about, and various other esoteric, let's say, shoots of the yogic mainstream. But because the magic that was used in order to bring about results that favored the magician or the magician's client, or for whomever the magus was working, it led to more negative karma. And it became a temptation that could cause a yogi to deviate from the goal of liberation from the cycle of birth and death into, claiming the power of some supernormal capacity, including longevity, but that would ultimately then lead to a worse downfall and not to liberation. So it was not, and is not, advisable for anyone to use those powers so long as they are in a corruptible state. Okay? Having said that, we are now at the end of Kali Yuga. And at this time, at the end of Kali Yuga, and the period just before the planet enters the next singularity and the portal to a new cycle of time, Now it becomes important for the return of the magi and those magical capacities in order to be able to traverse what we must face in the downfall of civilization that's imminent, and in the dealing with the planetary ruins of a Mad Max level of chaos that we will have to pass through, in which those magical powers will become essential. But they are only activatable once you have transcended the ego. The ego will not be able to use the power of white magic. So there's a fail-safe protection in this. But if we reach that avataric level prior to the end of the yuga and the kalpa, then those powers will enable us to pass through into the next cycle, or to transcend the cycle, but to be able to offer a protective energy field to those who are to be the, let's say, founding inhabitants of the next Satyuga. So there will be a kind of angelic role, even if one has left the body, that will enable the use of those powers in a non-local space to provide protection and divine assistance to those who require it and have earned that right. So there is a lot that needs to be done, and the methods of knowing how to do them is being given again. The wisdom is returning, but again, it will only be useful to those who have purified the soul, made the body into a temple of God, and can then use that knowledge as a resource for guardianship of the, let's say, the colony of those who are becoming avatars and angels in the physical plane, in order to be able to complete their development and be undisturbed by the chaotic vibrational field that will be surrounding them. And this knowledge, therefore, will be given to whomever in the world has reached the level of consciousness that they are able to access it. So the basis of white magic, and why this retreat is called that, is that we must first establish the foundation upon which those magical understandings and powers are given, and then the actual technical development of them can proceed. So the basis is not the basics. It's actually the most advanced level, because you have to have achieved liberation, and then bring the power that comes with that and the authority into a form where it morphs into mastery. So this has to happen within an ethical context and within a context of very strict self-regulation of consciousness that must never fall below a certain level. If it does, then all that has been gained will be drained away. And so this is why the idea in alchemy of the hermetically sealed vessel is so important. There must be no leakage of energy through desire or fear. And one must never touch the earth plane. One must remain in the light. The body-mind will function through the ray that connects the mind via the pineal gland and the Jyotibindu, the light that shines there from the Atman. But the Atman remains transcendent of the holographic field, and must never again enter into it in the form of any egoic identity. even an exalted identity. There must be a complete union with the source, and only from there can the magic be, let's say, manifested and transmitted. So I hope that's helpful. This is the time, it's probably the last opportunity before the world gets too chaotic to be able to develop these understandings and practices, and to have the luxury of being able to work together to enhance the powers of our consciousness, to prepare for that final stage of what is about to happen on this planet, and to be able to meet the forces of darkness with the power of light in its fully transcendent and invincible form, so that victory will be attained by the forces who are loyal to God. And it must be understood at the highest level, not transformed into some jihadic kind of parody of itself. And it must remain very clear that we're talking about love and wisdom in a context of non-violence and non-identification with a body and non-local consciousness. Unless it's within that paradigm, it will be distorted. Okay. So does that help to give the understanding of why we're doing a retreat like this? It's essential for those who are ready, and they will know if they are called to participate in something like this. Very few will be able to do that.
Purifying the soul, killing off the ego, service to God and others, losing your attachments to the world. That's what I'm gathering is key elements to allow you to have these superpowers, to get these downloads. So stop poisoning yourself. Stop inviting people into your life, into your bubble that cause a dissonance, cause you stress or anger or frustration. Make new friends if you have to. Make no friends if that's what it takes. Let everyone go. Yeah. In my journey, it's stop eating, take some acid, do an exorcism, and hope you come out anywhere close to what he's talking about here. But if I'm going to do that again, I have to prepare for not coming back to this life. Not coming back to this life as I know it. And I'm a little worried about that. I'm setting it up for April. I'm not buying any more food. I'm eating all the food that I have. Any last requests of food. I'm done with all my steaks and burgers, and now it's on to whatever canned goods I have in there right now. I have a lot of pasta and spaghetti to go through, so I'm going to have my final days of pasta and ragu sauce, and looking forward to that can of lima beans. Yeah. Exorcism, all good. Cleaning. Yeah, interesting story you said about being picked up from school, losing time. That's interesting. I've only heard a few people talk about experiences where they've lost time. I know during my Jesus episode I lost time. I just found out yesterday that my aunt seems to be in the understanding that it was only a couple of days I went through that, but for me it felt like an entire week, if not 2 or 3. Time was lost on me. But to know that I can't remember a thing that I ate for all of that and a week leading up to it, is still fascinating to me. How I didn't have the need for food or water or anything. When he said, you're connected to that divine source and you're your mind and body, or your body is taken care of because of that link through the pineal gland. I believe it. I believe that's why I had no hunger. I had no desire to nourish my body. I was getting nourishment straight from source, straight from being able to vibrate at that highest level. And I think there's something to be said about that, and purifying the body to get there, ridding your temple of anything that is not of God, all that. So when I figure it out, hopefully I still have a link to this platform here, a link to the outside world to start sharing that. I just don't feel like I will. And part of me going on this journey isn't just so I can wake up and live in bliss the rest of my life. I want others to experience it so it becomes a domino effect. But how is that possible if I have to come up with $50 bills to pay my internet and $300 bills to pay my rent and more dollar bills just to eat? All that has to go. There's avenues of there's faucets of income that I'll have to let go of that also let all of those things crumble away. So I don't want to just be the only one waking up to this and leaving you guys in the dust. But I don't know if there'll be much of a choice. Maybe you'll find me on the beach. You'll have to come all the way out to Huntington Beach, California, or wherever I'm going to be, and hear the rest of my journey for yourself. Who knows? I know I'll have a cell phone on me just for keeping in contact with my closest people, so maybe along that journey, sitting outside of free Wi-Fi at a McDonald's will be where I do the rest of my live streams. So anyway, I think this is a good time to end it, about the 3-hour mark. Still didn't find that video I was looking for. Now I'm going to have to really search for it because I wanted to finish it, and I stopped it last night because I planned on playing it first for this stream, and it's somewhere in my history folder. I'm going to have to look in there and replay a bunch of the stuff I've already listened to find it. But that'll be for the next stream, I guess. So anyway, guys, I might be back later on today. I'm not sure. I woke up at like 4 in the morning or something, 3 in the morning tonight, so I'll be up for a lot of this day. And today is I'm giving myself the day off, so to speak. And then I'm picking back up on all the editing that I have to do for a client. And then I have a big video I have to start on that I'm not looking forward to starting on because it's going to take a lot out of me in several days of my energy. So I'm going to end it here, and thank you guys for showing up into and BCB and MK Ultra, Newfmatic, Jess Palmer, Robert Page. Thanks, you guys. Yeah, pretty weird stuff. That experience makes me go vibrations. Tuning in here and out seems possible for me. Yeah, to be honest, I think my body was out of this vibration also, or it was still there on autopilot and only my awareness was hijacked. That seems weird to me. I mean, you're talking to somebody that had to literally repossess his body walking down a hallway on its own. So I can relate. That I don't know what they stuck me with, man, but they were trying to keep me out of my own body. They were trying to change my consciousness on a way that I can only relate to implanting a completely different consciousness within it. When you wake up like this, and they know, they will use the ways of the law and legalese to strap you up, cuff you, stick you with a needle, and hope that it works. In my case, it failed twice. I came back in my body, I overcame the drug, and I don't know what lasting effects it's had on me, but I'm on that list. I'm on that list of people that they had no effect over. So I'm pretty sure that that's one of the reasons why I made 5 grown people, including 2 police officers fully armed, run from me. I think that they were high-level secret societal puppets in clown uniforms there, masquerading as police and doctors in that moment, to try to keep me away from the illusion, but I saw right through it. There's no reason why they shouldn't have arrested me or beat me up or tased me. There's no reason. There's nobody else I know of could have kicked the nurse 5 feet into a wall and not get manhandled by 5 people for it, but I didn't. So I think I'm on that list. I think they know what I'm all about, and they don't want any part of me waking up, dudes. Why a lot of stuff's working against me right now, keeping my vibration high. I have a lot of forces that work against me in that regard, whether it's with money I'm making or like the wild ride that I have to go through just to get to eat, for example. The runaround that I get from even my closest people, things that happen in their life to have them not give me that ride to go somewhere or whatever, it's otherworldly forces acting to stop me from raising my vibration. And I see it now, so I'm preparing in other ways. So evolving in that way, persevere past the negativity that is trying to get back into this temple. All right, guys. Interesting, because I've never looked at it that way. Assumed it was all gone in this dimension. I was all gone in this dimension. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Interesting. Consciousness, bodies. All right, guys. Much love. Like I said, I might be back later to finish streaming some more of this stuff. I think today is just going to be a day of fun and relaxation for me. Hopefully I get a little pot. Maybe I'll come back, play some music or something. I got a jingle I'm working on. Trying to put a drum beat together for a cool little guitar riff. So maybe if I get my bud, I'll be happy enough to come on and play some music and talk to you guys again. But anyway, you all have a great Monday, great rest of your week, and I'm here to try to change the world, right? Who's with me? Peace out, guys. Much love.
Fighting the machine, fighting the machine, fighting the machine, fighting the machine.
Orishi Show. Orishi Show. Take the red pill. Take the red pill. Orishi Show. Orishi Show. Take the red pill. Take the red pill.
Justice. Fight.